Home. Here is home. And yet, I don't understand it. Does anyone? Every corner in northern New Mexico reveals another landscape, another layer of history, life. High Mountain Desert is a home right here. It may not look like desert or like a home. Flatlands, scrublands, mountain lands, river. The earth is parched. The plants are parched. The politics are parched. The river is hungry. It eats the land. Watershed.
A watershed is a geographical boundary that's made by nature. And so when one drop of water falls and lands on the earth, it'll follow a certain path. And a watershed is that space that the water stays in and ultimately finds its way to a tributary and then a stream and then a larger stream. And so a watershed is really an area that collects water and then sends it downstream.
All the land eaten by the river. All the plants drinking the river. All the animals eating the plants, eating each other. All the people working the land, drinking the river, buying the river, the land, eating the plants and animals, washing in the river. Everything here is in balance. Tension. Everybody here has a story. We came to listen. I came here to where I grew up. I came with my friend Mark, and he listened, felt the tension. If you were to hear everything that we heard, it would sound like this.
Profit, and I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand it.
The Chama River begins in the snowpack of southern Colorado's mountains before flowing south towards the desert. The Chama flows into the Rio Grande, a main water source for millions of people in New Mexico, Texas, and Mexico. In 1994, Albuquerque discovered that it was taking twice as much water out of its aquifer as was being replenished by nature. Fearing catastrophe, officials rushed to find an alternative water source for the growing city. In 1964, the Bureau of Reclamations built a tunnel that linked the Chama River to its sister, the San Juan River, a tributary of the Colorado River. The Bureau of Reclamation's project is called the San Juan Chama. This tunnel diverts San Juan River water 18 miles underground beneath the Continental Divide. In 2004, Albuquerque initiated the $400 million drinking water project to use San Juan Chama water for the city.
What we have is about 48,000 acre feet of San Juan Chama water that we're allowed to use here as part of our drinking water supply. And what that does for us is it allows us to do what's called conjunctive management, where we use as much surface water as possible when we've got it, and that allows the aquifer to rest and recharge. And we have seen aquifer levels rising as much as 15 feet just in the 7 years that it's been since we brought the drinking water project online.
New Mexico is prone to periodic drought. This is desert. Archaeology tells us that ancient Anasazi civilizations in Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde collapsed because of drought. Today, we humans are still vulnerable. Our dams and tunnels mitigate the issue, but here, we live in aridness. What can we do to care for this place? How do we live here in this scarce water world?
It was my reality during the heavy drought period here that lasted, and we're still in it, but I mean it lasted a good 5 years in terms of really dry weather, or 3 years at least, I would say. And I was out on the back porch here wanting that thunderhead to come from the Jemez Mountains and water the garden. Please, I'd do anything, even make a fool of myself. So that's where the poem comes from. Calling the Rain. On a hot afternoon at 7,000 feet, I clank my hoe between rows of struggling corn. In the distance, a thunderhead mushrooms over Chicomo Peak. In its shadow are the Tewa-speaking pueblos, Okeowinge, Kapo, and Powage. Decades out here, and I'm still beginning to know the land and its people, the abrupt temperament of the wind, the severity of drought. On Pueblo feast days, I come to realize how the ceremonies call rain from the sky and let the corn grow. Poems set to drum, rattle, choral chant, mime, and intricate footwork keep the seasons turning and the soul in balance. I follow this continuous cycle of ritual drama as an outsider, but with deep appreciation of the beauty and the power of song. This afternoon, with no thought to that, something inside me gets my feet tapping. It's hot, and the dearth of rain severe. The garden is withered. Desperate to call that thunderhead my way, I stand from my chair, I grab my gourd rattle, and give it a shake. Not enough. I must form some words, sing them into action. I have to lose myself entirely to the calling of rain. No trite imitation of someone else's ritual. I must make it my own. Sing for as long as it takes to move that cloud into my backyard.
Our watershed in northwest New Mexico and southwest Colorado is providing 1/3 of the drinking water to the state of New Mexico. And if we have catastrophic forest fires, we can pollute the watershed that a third of New Mexico is dependent on.
Fire kills. Fire burns. But the land needs fire. For over a century, the Forest Service and other organizations have worked tirelessly to put out wildfires. But when the forests here aren't allowed to burn, they build up more and more wood, more and more fuel for fire. More fuel means a bigger, hotter fire.
Government shows up like the Marines to put out the fire. Money is endless. Resources are endless. There's helicopters, there's thousands of people out there. There's all this high dollar equipment. As soon as the fire's out, they run away like a scared dog with their tail between their legs, right before the real damage is getting ready to start.
what I've seen over the years is that the fire does damage, and I'm not going to argue that when you've moonscaped a place and nuked the forest that a big thing hasn't happened, but it's when the rains come right after that fire, that's when we start seeing erosion that is so outside the range of natural variation that it, it it just tears your heart, because when you lose the soil, and they've done some research in different places, but typically an inch of soil in a forest ecosystem like this takes about 10,000 years to develop. After a fire, when there's no vegetation holding the soil in place, we can have an intense smell, rainstorm, August thunderstorm, and I've seen it move 5 or 6 inches of soil in one storm. We are coming to understand that a lot of the fire ecology of our landscape pre-European settlement was really managed by Native Americans.
Fire and scarce water are physical characteristics of the landscape. This place also contains a deep history and many cultures. These are also part of this land, part of the story.
If you were to buy a white pickup, and I liked that pickup, and I wanted it, but I couldn't get it, I would find a way to steal it from you. That's what happened to the land, okay? The land being the pickup. Okay, so now I stole your pickup. And I decided that I was going to paint that pickup green. Okay? I used the pickup. So now I'm tired of the pickup, so I decided I'm going to sell the pickup to Mark, because Mark can give me money for it. So Mark now buys the pickup that is green. He paints it yellow and sells it to Joe. Who does the pickup belong to? It was stolen.
It's messy.
It's very messy, but it was stolen. In this country, according to American law, you cannot sell something that is stolen, right?
Stolen. Manny says stolen. It's strange how land can be stolen. You can't put land in the back of an El Camino and pull away. But conquest is woven into this place. In 1598, the Spanish conquest arrived to present-day New Mexico. Already living on the land were many native peoples. The Pueblo Indians, or Anasazi, who had inhabited the land for millennia. The Navajo, Apache, and Ute. Militant Spanish conquistadors, tasked with expanding the empire, came with Franciscan priests, missionaries intent on making the native people into Catholics. The violence of the Spanish conquest brought terror. One potent example is when conquistador Juan de Oñate punished the people of Acoma Pueblo, the oldest continually inhabited place in America, for a backlash against the occupying Spanish soldiers. Oñate cut 1 foot off each of 80 Acoma men and enslaved many others. This statue, a monument to Oñate built in 1998, had its foot cut off in the most recent act of retribution. Back in 1680, in resistance to Spanish tyranny, the Pueblo Indians, for the first time, united in a revolutionary front and revolted with force against the Spanish invaders. The Pueblo Indians expelled Spain from the territory for 12 years. Spain returned in 1692. Over the centuries, Spain, and later Mexico, granted land grants, mercedes, to settlers and pueblos. Land grants included individual plots of land for families to live on, surrounded by common lands. At one time, these common lands were hundreds of thousands of acres in size and were used for hunting, fishing, timber, and grazing. In 1848, the expanding United States conquered the area that is now the American West, taking it from Mexico, consumed with the idea of manifest destiny, the divine right of the U.S. to acquire the western reaches of North America for progress and prosperity. The U.S. Congress established the Court of Private Land Claims in 1891 to deal with Mexican and Spanish land claims that were guaranteed by the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed by the U.S. and Mexico when the U.S. took control of the territory. During the 13 years that the justices of the court operated, many U.S. settlers, including some of the justices, drunk on capitalism and land acquisition, made it their aim to own as much land as possible. It is that land acquisition that many call stealing.
Who was the quarter plan land claims? All Anglo people, Western people. Nobody knew the history of the area. If you go through all that document I have there, the quarter plan land claims, it's all Anglo people, Western people. That cared nothing, they cared nothing about the people here.
You know, because we have this shift from commonly held to private.
See, when they lost the land, that introduced another problem, poverty. People couldn't make it, you know. People can't afford to feed cows all winter and then have to pay pasture to pasture them in the
Private or
so you wind up working for everybody else except for yourself.
become
I mean,
an,
as a rancher, you're at the mercy of the market anyway.
you become an
You
indentured
can't put a
servant.
price on what you grow. You're at the mercy of the market. Farmer's always at the mercy of the market. You know, and that hurt people here quite a bit. That cost a big, a lot of people to move.
Are there
They
some?
had to move. There was no jobs. There was.
So basically what we're looking at, we call it move. There's a nice, much better term for that. It's called displacement.
Displacement, yeah. You got displaced.
Do people want money or land?
They're split.
It's really
They're
split.
split. I want the land because you can make money left and right and you can't make land. And you know what, so you run out of money eventually.
Yeah.
You know, remember that quote I told you, my friend Trudy? Only when the last river fish caught and when the last river poisoned, will we realize that we cannot eat money.
In 1967, facing such marginalization, farmers and ranchers from along the Chama, part of La Alianza Federal de Mercedes, the Federal Alliance of Land Grants, got together and started making citizens' arrests in order to make their voices heard, to speak out about the injustice being done to them at the will of the government. On June 5th, 1967, under the leadership of Reyes Lopez Tijerina, a land grant activist from Texas, the Alianza went to Tierra Amarilla to arrest the district attorney Alfonso Sanchez. The group arrived at the courthouse armed with guns. A shootout broke loose, and the raid made national media. Moises was there, a member of the Alianza. He now works in the very same courthouse. He explained to us why his people were so upset.
I heard in the news that they were going to arraign about 8 or 9 of the elders here in Santa Maria, you know. So I told Reyes, I said, they're going to arraign the people in Santa Maria. So Reyes sent me over here. And I did come, and they were arraigning all the old timers, harassing them, terrorizing them, that if they ever got involved in another land grant meeting, that they were going to go to the pen, they were going to go to jail, that they were going to lose everything.
And all that was in English?
In English,
Yeah.
yes. No interpretation in Spanish, nothing. A total acres, 33 million acres were stolen in New Mexico from the native custom and culture, from the Native Americans and our people. Because we are Native American, we're
How
indigenous.
So? How so?
Well, my grandfathers and grandmas were from the Pueblo Indians, mestizos.
Yeah.
My grandfathers were part Ute, Navajo. On my wife's side, her grandfather was pure Navajo. So we're mestizos. We were here first in time, first in place with the Native Americans. We were born of a Native mother and a foreign father. So Mexico was here. This was Mexico.
Here, people claim a mixed heritage, Spanish and Indian blood. We often heard that the mixing was a result of a slave trade and intermarriage between the Spanish and the Indians. I heard a term that I had never encountered before, Genízaro.
You'll see several definitions. One is you'll see Turkish soldier. You'll see detribalized Indian. That refers more, to the definitions that start coming to be here in New Mexico. Hispanicized Indian. Okay, the one that fits best for me is one that a Spanish couple that were visitors to Abiquiu told me one time when we were, I saw him walking around, I talked, I introduced myself to him, and they told me they were from Spain. And I said, oh, this is so good. I've been waiting a long time for someone from Spain, because I have a peculiar question I want to ask. And I asked the gentleman if he knew what the word Genízaro meant, sharp as a tack. He told me immediately, children of war.
Children of war. Children of a settlement on the border between the Pueblo Indians and Spanish to the south, and the Navajo, Apache, and Ute to the north. This link explains why Genízaro people are deeply twined with the many ways of Indians.
And I read that in a report by some very early Spaniards that came by, and I think it was the Dominguez Escalante expedition, came through northern New Mexico. And they one point, and they made the point that regarding agriculture and farming, how the Native American communities were working in common and together. So no certain garden or area was anyone's in particular. They all worked at it. They all, grew the food, harvested the food, and they all ate.
Had a group of Indian kids from Santo Domingo, and their native language is Quetas, and so one of my guys was giving a safety talk, and he asked them, well, so I suppose you know what the word chama means? And they went, okay, what? And he was going to tell him some phony baloney story about featuring a pun. They said, tomorrow. And so I was telling this story to a San Juan man, to a Wingate man, and that tribe is Tewa speakers, and these were Tewa speakers that occupied the Chama Basin back in the 14th and 13th century. And I said, you know, I was told that the word Chama means tomorrow, and he said, the word in Tewa means wrestling place.
So in Indian country, you share. So that's where the relationship fits into the Utes and the Pueblos and the Navajos, and we try to share. Because there's room for everybody. There's enough for everybody. And the Creator saw to that. But now that we're in this predicament with the white civilization, we have to solve it. We have to do it a way to maintain our survival too. So that's how we look at it too. They gave the opportunity to the dinosaurs first. And my understanding is that the next group is the insect people, you know, the insect world is going to take over after we're gone. So why do we fight over it? Why do we destroy it? You know, that's the only thing out here in the middle of space where there's home.
To all those people, this is home. And this is home to me. So, what now?
Ba-dum.